On to our next interview with a radio personality who's been associated with some of the biggest hit songs from the 80s and 90s. Former head of programming and music, manager at Radio 1, and currently, of course, manager of Radio 1 Lebanon, which has been around for some 36 years, to be more precise. It started out back in 1982 and was, of course, established by Raymond Gaspard, who unfortunately has been based in Dubai for quite a while, so that's why we couldn't get hold of him. We'll be talking to Mr. Abdul Kahali. Hello, Abdul. How are you?
Hello, Eli. Good to have you here.
Abdul, Radio 1 was put together back in 1982, as I said a while ago, by Raymond Gaspard during a very difficult time, you know, the Civil War and everything. What was it like, you know? What are your recollections from that era?
Eventually, Mr. Raymond Gaspard, he established Radio 1 late 1982. Eventually, it was declared officially on air January 8, 1983. Back then, we had two private radios. They were innovators and they were ahead of us. It was, I recall, Radio Pax and Magic 102.
And, of course, RML.
And RML, of course. So we were actually the fourth private radio. And remember that era, it was not a lovely era. It was the war era. So we were like the place or the people they used to listen to radio, and it was, you know, you didn't have this technology at that time. So the music was the relief and the aspiration to the listeners at that time.
It was a bit of a remedy, if we can put it that way.
Yeah, this is the word.
Especially to you know, young people, teenagers like I was at the time. Radio 1 meant a lot to all those listeners during a very difficult time in Lebanon.
Well, I can reveal something, Eli. I was one of your faithful listeners when you were at Magic 102 then. So I was, we learned a lot from you. So you were one of the innovators in Lebanon, and we're proud of you.
Abdul, I'd like to talk about the whole Top 40 radio format. Radio 1 started out as an international radio with a blend of French and English music, and then it shifted towards a more mainstream pop rock format. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're totally right. If you allow me, please, I would say something about the evolution of radio and how it affected the music and the programming. And that's how the formats were constructed. So if we go back to the early 20s, the early days of radio, radio was the only or the first wireless medium to communicate with the listeners. Then with the arrival of TV, they said, all the analysts and the program managers and the investors, they say, khalas, radio is dead. But remember, at that time, the TV required electricity and the radio as well required electricity. So radio was not mobile. So when you were stuck at home, you had both radio and TV. Naturally, you will go for TV because it's audio and video. So then they said, wow, khalas, radio is dead. Prior to that, remember that radio programs, it was like a full service. So it included everything. Drama, sports coverages, even live performances at the radio. With the arrival of TV, it shaped the industry. And radio had to, let's say, to reinvent itself in order to compete with the TV. So at that time, radio started to be more focused and more specialized. So then you can see in the States like 1,000 radios, they shifted to only music radios. With the music radios, also they started, all these analysts and researchers, they said, okay, while naturally every person would like to hear his favorite song, so they started to do something, let's call it top 40 rotation, whereby the most favorite or the most liked song used to be played like 7 to 10 times a day, and then the second is like 5 to 6 times a day. So I think that was the magical recipe which made the radio successful again, and people, they started relying on radio for music, and of course the main, let's call it mission, which is to educate, inform, and to entertain.
What I also remember from those good old days is Radio 1's acquisitions of several international shows, including the legendary Casey Kasem's American Top 40, which is definitely one of the highlights of that era. It was broadcast on Radio 1 from 1984 to 1986. Is that correct? Not only that, at a later stage, you also acquired Brian Seacrest's programs as well.
Yeah.
So you went international in a way.
Yeah, that's it, Lee. At that time, we wanted to have like something, let's call it USP, unique selling proposition. So we acquired like international programs, and eventually we brought the world to Lebanon. Bearing in mind, in 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s, you didn't have stream radios, so people couldn't listen to, let's say, Casey Kasem, which was aired in Los Angeles, the program. So that's why we got it, and I remember we used to get it first on reel, on tape, and then in the 90s we started getting it on CD. So imagine we used to wait for the DHL to arrive in order to get the CDs and then to air them.
And the internet thing was definitely a far-fetched thing back in the day. Abdul, I'd like to talk about the biggest hit songs that you actually introduced. I mean, when radio was starting out, the FM radio format, people or DJs or programmers were concentrating on, playing mainly hit singles, the hit songs taking over the charts across the UK and the USA and Europe. But at a certain stage, Radio 1 started playing album tracks, which turned out to be huge, massive hits.
Totally true, Eli. As you said before, Radio 1 started like a mixture of French and English music. Then, after doing some research back in 1984, we decided to have the differentiation from other radios. So actually we shifted to rock music, and that at that time rock was at its peak. The heavy metal, the rock, and the classic rock,
the
which
American
was
rock format. Yes.
Yes, sir. So at that time we were more like rock radio, acquiring top 40 rotation. Plus, as you said, we started introducing album tracks instead of playing only the hit single. And remember, at that time we used to have the vinyl, the single, and the whole album, the whole LP.
Yeah.
So in addition to playing the single, we used to choose some songs, and I still remember that I used to follow you. Wow, Lance, Eli. So may I call you Lance? Is playing this on Magic 102. Wow, I love this song. So we used to copy and learn from each other's, and we introduced the album, let's call it album cut. Not
album cut, yeah.
Eventually, look in the States, if you count the formats, you say, let's say, top 40. Then you have CHR, Contemporary Hit Radio, which is exactly like Radio 1 now. And there is the AC, Adult Contemporary. And there is the album-oriented rock. AOR. So eventually we were the mixture of that. So we were rock, top 40 rotation, and we had some album-oriented.
And other radio stations followed that particular path as well, right after, Radio 1's decision to also play album tracks. Let's talk about today's radio, Abdo, as opposed to yesterday's format. Are you pessimistic or optimistic about it? With the whole internet invasion and everything, I must say that the radio format is still the only media tool that is still working, hasn't been largely affected by the internet, unlike, the TV industry, which is suffering a lot these days. What do you think?
Look, of course, the industry is shaky, and let's call it, there's certain market shift in the consumer's mind. So, Anna, once I was lecturing for the MBA students, and I had, let's call it a debate. So people, they were arguing with me. They said, well, we don't need radio because I will go to Spotify, to Anghami, to Deezer, and I will choose my playlist, blah, 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 blah. So I said, I don't want to wait for the radio DJ to play me my favorite song. It's one click away. Well, that's good, of course. So this has affected radio, and it actually, let's say, radio lost some market share because of that.
Well, let's put it this way. It lost some of its mystery, some of its magic, as opposed to, especially when it comes to radio broadcasters. who used to be major stars at the time, and it was very difficult to get in touch with a radio broadcaster, let alone see them or visit them at a radio. Nowadays, it's all out in the open.
Yeah, of course. And on the other hand, as I said, there is a certain weakness with all these. You cannot call them radio when you say Deezer or Anghami. This is not radio. It's just like you create your own playlist. It's like a music provider. But radio, it's not only a music provider. Radio, it's entertainment, it's interaction with
Absolutely.
the people, it's
not
engagement.
It's not a robot.
Of course. Moreover, the listener, when he's listening to Lance on the radio, he feels that Lance is a friend. As if Lance, he's telling him a story, as a friend telling another friend a story. And it's always person to person. Moreover, when you're doing, when I say news, it means new. It just happened. So especially here at Radio 1, we were aware and we were proactive. So in 2012, we won the best interactive Facebook in the Middle East under category radio. So we were aware that this social media and digital media is going to be a threat to radio. So that's why we acquired social media in order to enhance the performance of the output of Radio 1. Thus, people when are listening to Gavin and Olga in the morning, they can put let's say the face on the voice. So and actually, there are some interactive competitions which are done on both channels. I mean, the digital, the social media, Insta, Facebook, Twitter, and simultaneously it's going on the radio. So we also hit the listeners on other channels.
Abdul, you're also a university professor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the thesis that you were telling me about a while ago. What can you tell us about it? You're currently working on your thesis, which is radio format versus the digital era. Is
Yes,
that correct?
Yes. Actually, this is my baby. I've been lecturing at universities for the past 20 years, but recently, because I come from the engineering background, so my first degrees was BS Mathematics, BS Aeronautical, MS in Mechanical Engineering. Then I teach in the Communication Arts department. Now I'm a lecturer at AUST. On the other hand, because I need the knowledge and I need to be up to date, so I was running an MBA program as a general MBA. I finished all the requirements and now I'm doing my thesis. My thesis, actually, it's my daily bread. It's my butter and bread. So the title is Traditional Radio versus Digital Media. I'm doing some literature review, some exploratory research. I'm interviewing decision makers like yourself. And moreover, I'm doing a survey. The survey, myself, I'm looking forward to get the results. On the other hand, I know that the expenditure of ads has shifted. I mean, radio, anyway, the market share is low. So if you take the norms worldwide, you know that TV, it acquires like 50% of the money spent on ads.
Yes.
Then you had the press, then you had the outdoors, and now digital came along. Digital, actually, it grabbed the biggest share from the prints. I mean, newspapers and all magazines, and some from the TV and some from the outdoors. It got a little percentage from the radio because anyway, radio is let's call it cheap in the meaning of advertising on radio.
Absolutely.
So radio used to get like, say, let's say like 9% of the total spending. Now maybe it's like 80%. This is a good indication that radio is not dead.
Exactly. That's what I was, trying to explain a while ago. Radio is the only thing that hasn't been largely affected, in a negative way by the whole internet thing in this day and age, which is a good thing.
Yeah, of course. And as you said, Eli, it's because radio we are using, and on the other hand, I say that radio is benefiting from the digital channels, whereby, let's say, now you can listen to Radio 1 worldwide on the Radio 1 app.
Which is the upside.
Of course,
the whole
and
thing.
Moreover, it's like, it's a high-definition audio. We broadcast on high-definition audio, and within the app, it's interactive. So people will, if they are in the States, Lebanese diaspora, even here in Beirut, when this technology is available in a cheap when the cost goes down to get this data, I think this will replace the traditional FM transmission. But on the other hand, as I say when I lecture, you have to be content king. So I care less if you are listening to Radio 1 through the FM channel, or you are listening to Radio 1 through its app
It doesn't matter as long as you are actually listening to it.
Yes, sir. So eventually you are changing the distribution channel. And by the way, you know, in Norway, 10th of January 2017, they shut down all the FM transmitters. Now it's only digital, either DAB, digital audio broadcast, or mostly it's like internet streaming. So I think in Lebanon, we need another 4 or 5 years to have proper infrastructure for the internet.
I suppose we're getting there. We will get there.
I am optimistic about that.
Excellent. Abdul, I would like to thank you so very much. Again, thank you for all those great years of music. Wish you all the best for Radio 1 and for Raymond Gaspard as well. A big hello to him. One last thing. Which song, in your opinion, as a former DJ, would best describe the Radio 1 days?
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, wow.
There's a million songs, but just if you were to choose only one song that sort of best represents the whole Radio 1 extravaganza, if we can put it that way, back in the 80s.
Yeah, look, maybe in 1983, remember Careless Whisper? It was somehow among all these rock songs, Journey and Scorpions and Rainbow. So maybe that was the distinguished song whereby it was like a unique on Radio 1. And still, I would call it a timeless hit.
It's a classic.
Yeah, of course.
Abdul, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eli.